Welcome everyone, my name is Worthy Pickle and this is your channel for all things Starfield. I am beyond excited to let you guys know, as of today, I was approved to get an early copy of Starfield to review before the game is launched. So while I don't have the game just yet, I do want to thank each of you that watch my videos for helping make this channel such a great and fun community for me to be a part of. Honestly, this channel has grown so quickly I haven't had the time to really process it. So again, I sincerely thank each of you for your support, and I won't be able to talk about my experiences with the game until the 31st, but make sure that you are subscribed to the channel because I do have a lot of videos planned for the future. Okay, but that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump into the video you guys actually came here for. So in this video, we're going to go through each and every question and answer that was discussed in the recent Starfield developer Q&A. So I'm a bit late to this, so let's go ahead and just get started. The first question that was asked was, can we buy houses or properties in main cities? This was actually a question I had as well. And Will says, yep, there's housing in different cities that the player can get. Some you have to purchase and some are rewards for specific quests. Emil responded, sure can. You can purchase a dwelling in all the major cities in the game. And there's at least one that you get specifically for completing something. So a few things to note here. First of all, one of my favorite things about Skyrim was having a property that I could purchase in each of the major cities. And it looks like that's coming to Starfield as well, which is fantastic. I mean, not everyone wants to build a giant settlement or a village like we had in Fallout 4. Not everyone wants that. I totally understand that. I like to do that, but I also like to have a place I can call home in each of the cities. So when I'm visiting a city to do quests, I have somewhere to go to sleep or place some loot before I travel back or go to various places. I don't always want to fast travel to and from my house just to drop off some stuff. If I'm in a city, I like to have a place I can drop that off. And it looks like we'll be able to do that in this game as well. The other thing that Emil teases here, and he kind of teases a few things throughout the Q&A, but he mentions that there's one home we get specifically for completing something. I imagine this is some type of side quest, or maybe it's for completing a faction quest line. Of course, I'm just speculating that. I imagine that it's going to be something bigger. If we're going to get a home or a property out of it, I imagine it's going to be a bigger quest line, but maybe I'm wrong. But I expect that would be pretty cool, being gifted a home for completing some type of mission. The next question was, if we get the kid stuff trait, will our parents be generated based on our character's looks, or are there standard parents put in place? What benefits might there be? Will says, our programmers on our new face tech were excited to make a function that could try to match your custom face and then create the two parents. So they are based on what your character looks like. Although the specific math involved is beyond me, we had similar tech in our previous games. Emil then says, yes, totally. Just as we did in Fallout 3 with your dad and Fallout 4 with your son, in Starfield, if you take the kid stuff trait, your parents are based off of you. No spoilers, but I think fans will really appreciate the actors we got to play those roles. And they are just so into it. It's awesome. Oh, and you can get stuff too. This isn't necessarily massive news, especially for those that don't really care for the kid stuff trait, but personally, I am going to be choosing the kid stuff trait, so I think this is really cool, at least for the role-playing aspect of it. Being able to design your own character and then your parents are based off of what you look like, it's a really cool immersion thing. I do think it's also nice as well that you can get stuff from them as well. Who knows what that is? I'm sure it's just a birthday gift or a Christmas gift or something like that, but who knows? Maybe they can actually die later on in the game and you can inherit their house. That'd be pretty sweet. I doubt it. I'm just speculating, but I think that would be pretty cool. And it's really nice to see that their looks are based off of you. The next question is one that I've actually had in my comment section before from those of you that haven't really played Bethesda games in the past. But this one reads, for those of us who have never played a Bethesda game and will be starting with Starfield, what information should we know that will make the experience more impactful right from the start? How deep should we go into creating our character's backstory before we start the game? Emil starts us off by saying, we always make our games for fans both old and new, so you can jump in without ever having played a Bethesda title before. Will then says, while we do start you off in the same spot, what happens to you before the game starts is totally up to you and your head canon. Emil responds again and says, but we like to look at it less as playing a game and more about living in the universe we created. So settle in, go at your own pace, and pretty soon you'll learn all about the systems and adventuring through the settled systems the way you choose. As for going into a character's backstory, that's entirely up to you. I'm all about the headcanon. For example, my latest character is a working schlum named Mitch. He's a husky, good-natured space trucker, and while he'll do whatever he needs to defend himself, he'll never shoot first. He's like Han Solo's sweeter older brother, and yes, there are traits and backgrounds that support that kind of thing. Will then says, there is a trait and background system that will let you specify more about yourself, but you can also select an anonymous background and no trait if you want. In terms of if you've never played a Bethesda game before, try anything. We're a simulation as well as a role-playing game, so we try to support the player doing what they want as much as we can. So there's two main takeaways that I had with this. It was a very loaded response. It was very long, but the first thing that I noticed was that everyone starts out the game the same. And I'm not talking about backgrounds or traits or anything like that, but I mean the story. It starts out the same no matter what you pick for a background. There was a lot of rumors for a couple weeks there where people thought that there were alternate starts depending on what type of background you end up choosing. Right here, he says there is just that one start. The second thing was you can choose an anonymous trait. So if you don't really want a background or you don't really want a bunch of traits to start off the game, at least for role-playing perspectives, you can actually pick an anonymous trait where you don't really have a background. You don't really have a background traits or anything like that that could warp your idea of what you're role-playing as, which I think is just fantastic. It allows for more customization in your own headcanon. Next, they were asked, how will the smuggling cargo system work, and can we hide it somewhere on the ship and sell it for more currency later? Will says certain items are considered contraband, and you'll need to smuggle them past security ships that are in orbit of major settlements. Emil says there are specific items that are considered contraband, meaning they're pretty much illegal everywhere, and yes, you can hide them using special ship modules you can purchase. So, don't get caught with those harvested organs. The economy is fixed, but prices of bought and sold goods can change based on the skills you choose. Just like the other one, there's 2 points I want to point out. The first one being, we can have contraband, we can smuggle them in, we knew that before, but he mentioned harvested organs. I wonder if this is like harvested organs that we get from various organisms or kind of alien life out there. I don't know. Hopefully it's not human organs. That would be terrible. But the second thing that we learned from this, and I think the more important thing, is that the economy is fixed, meaning it doesn't matter where you are in the settled systems or wherever you are. If there is an economy, it's the same economy everywhere. So prices are going to be the same. The only thing that'll change that is the skills you choose. This was something that I was totally chastised for in my economy breakdown video that I made a few days before this Q&A came out. I speculated that, in my opinion, I thought the economy would change depending on what system you are in, depending on what planet you're at, where the cities are. I thought that there would be an adjustment to the economy. I was wrong. I'll admit I was wrong. It was just my speculation, my opinion, but it is nice to kind of get a final word that it is fixed. Next, they were asked, will there be a jail system if we commit crimes? Will says yes, you can elect to go to jail or pay a fine when you're arrested, or even resist arrest and try to escape. Emil says, yep, the settled systems is more like Skyrim than Fallout 4's Commonwealth in that regard. There's civilization, there's government, and there are laws. And in a couple of cases, we actually explore the themes of crime and punishment in our futuristic universe. Now, this is one thing that I love. I love the system in Skyrim for crime. You can go to jail if you want to settle your debt that way, or you can pay a fine, or you can resist arrest and try to escape. Typically, that'll bite you in the butt later, but you do have that option. I do also like that it looks like they'll be exploring themes of crime and punishment in a futuristic universe. I imagine this is going to be a specific settlement or major city that has their laws or the way they punish you in a different way than what we see as typical. And I think that'd be really cool to see. Who knows what that even means? The next question is pretty straightforward, but the person asks, will time pass when not in-game? For example, will my trade routes, outposts, and mining operations continue to produce, or does that only occur while actively playing? Emil says, the sim only runs when you're actively playing. No sleeping on the job. And then Will says, only when actively playing. So this one's pretty cool. It's pretty straightforward. It's not an MMO, so it's not going to continue to run. I feel like that'd be kind of OP. You set up an outpost system and then you don't play for a week and you come back and you're just loaded. That would kind of break the game, so it makes sense. The other thing I want to point out here is the person mentions trade routes in the question. and they don't answer correcting him. I have had quite a few people in my comment section debating whether there are trade routes because they haven't specifically mentioned that. While they have talked about outposts and settlements, they haven't really mentioned trade routes. This doesn't necessarily confirm it because they didn't, but they didn't correct them saying that it doesn't exist. So, you know. The next question is, can you be a double agent in the game? For example, if you join the United Colonies, can you also join the Crimson Fleet and give the United Colonies information? And what factions have that feature if they do? Will says, all the playable factions can be completed independently. The Crimson Fleet storyline does feature you being an undercover agent inside the fleet on behalf of UC SysDef, a specific military branch in the United Colonies, but whether you betray the fleet or the UC SysDef is a choice you will get to make. Emil responds saying, this is exactly what you can do. Infiltrate the Crimson Fleet for UC SysDef. It's specific to that quest line. In the studio, I have been half-jokingly accused of referencing movies that some folks have never seen because I'm old. So with this particular plotline, the inspiration was very much the movie Donnie Brasco, which is a true story of an FBI agent who infiltrates the mafia. How far will you go? While we've heard before that you can be a double agent between a couple different factions, it is kind of nice to hear a little bit more about it, just kind of picture what it's actually going to look like. I'd say the biggest thing with this, though, is when Will mentions that all of the factions can be completed independently. This, I'd say, kind of depends on the person, whether this is good or bad. For me, I'd say this is good. I like the idea of being able to play the individual factions, kind of work my way up a little bit. I don't like being the leader of every faction. But the fact that you're able to play each faction without it conflicting all too much is really nice. But I do also see that some people don't like that. Some people want the idea of being with the Crimson Fleet and it totally burns bridges with United Colonies. I totally understand that. Personally, I'm not that way, but let me know in the comment section if you're kind of discouraged about that. Next, we have the question, depending on traits selected during character creation, will it at all be possible to play through the game in a pacifist mode, i.e. without killing anyone or even potentially anything? Will responded by saying, I can't guarantee every mission can be completed in pacifist mode, but we do have a couple systems that will help. One system is our speech challenge game where you can persuade someone to do something like not fight you. The speech challenge game is added in specific scripted moments, and we try to add one into most quests where important characters confront you. Emil says, so we talked about this very early on during pre-production, whether or not we would fully support a non-lethal playthrough. We realized that for various reasons, that wasn't totally feasible. Now, that being said, there are some good non-lethal options, whether through dialogue or by using a non-lethal weapon. Those can be used in certain situations, honestly, a lot of situations, though I couldn't comfortably say that you could complete the entire game without killing whatsoever. The settled systems is mostly civilized, but it can be a dangerous place if you're going off the beaten path, and you're absolutely going off the beaten path. This one's pretty disappointing to a lot of people. Personally, I'm not a big fan of going through a pacifist playthrough. I don't play a Bethesda game to not kill things, but I do understand there is a diehard community out there for playing pacifist in Bethesda games and, well, other games for that matter. But it looks like that's not going to be in Starfield. There is a couple things with this, and it sounds like there's a couple main missions where killing someone or something is going to be required. Maybe that's not the case. It sounds like you will have to kill at some point, but only time will tell. I'll be kind of curious just to kind of see how that works. The other thing here is that there are non-lethal weapons, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if this is more kind of like sleep darts, or if this is just beating someone upside the head with a hammer until they pass out. We don't really know, but in some way or another, there is non-lethal weapons. Moving on from that, though, we go ahead and move over to the religions when someone asked, what are the beliefs and basic history of the religions we can join? This is a pretty loaded response because they go over each of the three main religions in the game. But Emil starts us off by saying existing in real life religions are part of the Starfield universe, with folks of all religions and denominations out there. But we don't really focus on them. Instead, we highlight three new ones specific to the game. Will kicks us off by saying the Sanctum Universum is only a couple decades old in our timeline, but has gained a lot of prominence. They believe that God is out there, somewhere in the universe, and that humanity's ability to travel the stars brings us closer to God. Emil's perspective on that says, Sanctum Universum, the members called Universals believe that God very much exists somewhere in the universe. that a higher power is guiding us all. Specifically, they believe that humanity's ability to travel the universe and grav jump is God's way of saying, I'm out here, come find me. Will mentions the Enlightened are an atheist group that focus on humanitarian and community work. They believe that life is something every person has to take responsibility for, so that if we want the world to be a better place, we have to do it. Emil says for the Enlightened, these folks are essentially organized atheists. They don't believe in any kind of higher power, rather they teach that human beings have to take care of each other, and they practice what they preach through various community outreach programs. Lastly, Emil says House Va'ruun, I think I'm saying that right. Oh boy. So in this game, you're not really sure what the complete truth is, but the gossip among the guards is this. A colony ship sets off for a new world, making grav jumps along the way. After one of the grav jumps, one of the passengers claims he spent that time communing with a celestial entity known as the Great Serpent. What was a few seconds for everyone else was much longer for him, and he brought back a mandate, which is basically get on board or be devoured when the Great Serpent encircles the universe. Is it true? I ain't saying. So in this game, you sometimes face off against House Va'ruun Zealots as an enemy group, and that's their motivation. I recently got the House Va'ruun logo tattooed on my wrist, so yeah, I dig them. Alright, so let's talk about this, and I'm going to try really hard not to get carried away in speculation zone here. First and foremost, it looks like there are going to be real-world religions in this game, which is cool to see. Again, it's not going to be a big focus, but it is kind of nice to see that there will be various religions that kind of carry over there, whether that's Islam, Hindu, Christianity, whatever that may be. It's kind of cool that it's going to have a spot in this game. But what I really wanted to talk about was this last comment with House Va'ruun. Again, I'm going kind of into speculation zone here. I have no idea. But the fact that he mentions that he's not going to tell us whether or not this is true tells me this might have something to do with the main story. So is it possible that there's this whole religion out there because they came in contact with, let's say, an intelligent being outside the settled systems? And this is kind of our whole quest in collecting the rings and getting in contact with these people. Is it possible that they got in contact with us before? And that's kind of where this religion splits off to. I'm not completely sure. Just the fact that they kind of tease this makes me think it's going to play a bigger role in the game than we think. But again, we'll have to wait and see. On the topic of companions, though, they were asked, how many companions total will we be able to recruit? Will's response to this was there are over 20 named characters who can join your crew. 4 of them are from Constellation and have the most story and interaction with the player, but all the named characters have their own backgrounds and can follow you around and carry your stuff. Emil says over 20 total, so essentially the same thing, and we really focus on the members of Constellation. When we first began Starfield pre-production, we looked at our previous game and realized how popular and effective the companions were. So they were a big priority for us, and we really wanted to tie them directly to our main quest. There are some really big moments with them specifically. I should also mention that our companion voice cast is amazing. We haven't released the list yet, but you can be sure there are a lot of talented actors bringing those characters to life. Same for Constellation in general. When I first read this, I was a little bit disappointed, but I do think it's going to work out, and here's my thoughts on this. There's 20 named characters who can join your crew and can be companions to carry around your stuff and kind of join you on quests. 4 of them are going to be true Bethesda companions with quest and a storyline and a lot of history to them. The other 16 or so will just be kind of pack mules. You can have them along. If you like their voice lines or you like the way they look, of course you can have them join along, but they're not going to be super deep or in-depth. They're not going to have a lot of history to them or a ton of personality. That's my opinion. We don't really know, but that's what it sounds like. It sounds like there's really 4 that you're going to want, but if you want a little bit more customization, they'll be up to 16. And then it sounds like the rest of the crew or people you can assign to outposts are just going to be kind of AI generated, random people, random names, and then they have the rinse and repeat lines or dialogue. The next question and answer had me really disappointed, but they were asked, when we assign crew members to work at outposts, do we have to pay them salaries? Emil's response says, you just pay them once. We actually experimented with paying them regular salaries, but ultimately decided to just have one cost up front. There's a lot to do in Starfield, and we wanted to minimize what the player has to constantly keep track of. Will's response to this was very similar. Yep, one-time payment that you can use the speech challenge game to negotiate over. Some traits also affect the cost. This one was rather disappointing to me. We saw robots in the showcase or the deep dive, and we also showed companions that could work on your outposts. My thought process on this was a robot would be one upfront cost, and then it'll work for free from that point on, while workers would require a salary. That's what made sense to me, but it looks like all of them, whether it's a robot or person that's on your base, they're just going to be one upfront cost. And I understand where they're coming from. This game is going to be massive. There's a lot of different things to keep track of, and it looks like they just wanted to simplify this. And again, I get it. They're trying to get as many people to play this game and enjoy different features as possible, and I imagine there's a decent amount of people out there that don't really care to keep track of, weekly, monthly, or annual salaries for these people. So I get it, though it does make me pretty sad, and this is one of those things that I will be modding as soon as mod comes out for it. Next, will our companions be able to level up their perks? Will their perks stack with ours? Will responds saying all crews start with a set of perks at specific ranks, so you might meet a character that's especially good at rifles and you hire them to watch your back. Or you might meet an astrodynamics expert that will increase your grav jump range when assigned to your ship. Emil says, they don't level up, but they do come at different ranks, depending on the companion. Well, we call them skills in Starfield, and they do stack with yours. When relevant, some are there for flavor to highlight the companion's backgrounds and interests, but you'll really feel the benefit of the ship or combat-related ones. Getting a boost to your shields or seeing your companion lay down fire with a weapon they're proficient in are really sweet moments. This one I feel is pretty straightforward, so we're actually just going to move straight on from this one to the next question, which they were asked, what are your favorite parts of the game? Emil says, shipping it. But seriously, folks, because of my position, my experience is a little different than yours. I won't speak for Will, but personally, I've seen every questline, every city, every major piece of content in the game at every stage of development. So my answer is colored by that. For me, the real pleasure is seeing how they've all evolved into the versions they are today. The versions everyone here will play. I have a real soft spot for Neon. Getting that city nailed down took a lot of work by a lot of different people. And the result is, really, the cyberpunk settlement I always hoped it would be. I also love all the quest lines. I think they're the best we've ever done. The designers on this project really killed it. Will responds, I love finding content that I haven't seen yet or forgot about. Our games are so big that no one person is likely to have seen it all, which is funny because Emil just said that he'd seen it all. Anyways, even after all our passes and levels of review, our quests really evolve over development, and it's great to see how everyone adds them up. Designers, animators, voice actors, lighting, and everything. Most of this is just kind of big picture, but man, am I excited to see Neon. It really encapsulates the idea of a cyberpunk city, and oh man, I'm so ready just to jump into that city and see what it has to offer. All right, we're almost at the end of the question, so let's get to the next one. What books or movies had a big influence on some of the quests? Will says, I'm a history nerd, so I actually listen to a lot of podcasts like Hardcore History and History of Rome. While our game is science fiction, I like how historians can tell you about how human beings react to extreme circumstances, things like war, famine, and technological breakthroughs, and you can imagine how we'd react to similar circumstances in a fictional setting, just at a grander scale. Emil says, well, I'm a child of the late 70s, early 80s, and I have very fond memories of the sci-fi of that time. Star Wars, OG Battlestar Galactica, Space 1999, Buck Rogers, Battle Beyond the Stars, Ice Pirates, and let's not forget the classic that is Metal Storm. I think I actually saw that one in 3D, but also much headier sci-fi stuff, like the writings of Arthur or Robert, or films like Contract, Interstellar, A Space Odyssey, and even Event Horizon. In all those examples, you realize the outer space is two things. One, a source of mystery and wonder, sometimes terror, and two, a giant blank page on which you can write any story. And we have written a lot of very different stories in Starfield. Again, I won't dive super deep into this question and answer, but really big picture stuff that gets me really excited to see what Starfield really is. But the next question they were asked is, what are some favorite small details in Starfield to add to the immersion? Emil says, I think what I really love is that although humans are living in space and our aesthetic is very much NASA punk, this is a very lived-in universe, and you can see it everywhere. You know, everyone loves the sandwiches, but it's the books that are lying around, the notes on the bulletin boards, the environmental storytelling that our level designers and world artists are so good at. Totally love the work from our voice actors too, and the music, and sound effects, and clothes. Will, on the same topic of clothes, says, I look really closely at our outfits. You can see seams, materials, especially on our spacesuits. Constellation members have patches on their spacesuits, and they're tied to what skills they have. We also love buttons. There's lots of buttons. Buttons? We do love our buttons. Now, most of you guys already know this, especially if you're watching my videos. Odds are, whether or not you've played a Bethesda game or not, you understand that Bethesda is known for these universes and worlds that they create, and that they are lived in environments. It's not just the freedom that we have to do whatever we want to do, or role play in a game, or just kind of experiment with different mechanics, doing the main story or a bunch of side quests. But it's the fact that these worlds are created so strategically that it is a physical world or a physical universe that we put ourselves into. If we come across a note that's on a wall or on the ground, odds are there's going to be some words on there that lead to something, or tell us about a person, or some type of event that took place in that area. Everything is tied together in this big story of what there really is in this game, and I absolutely love that about Bethesda games. And there's lots of buttons, and I think that's pretty cool. All right, take a quick breath. We're on our last question, so let's get to it. The question is, what is the history of the mechs? Emil says, oh, the mechs, good one. So we showed this a bit in one of our animated shorts. The mechs are leftover from the Colony War. Note, it's Colony War and not Colony Wars, singular. Both sides, United Colonies and Freestar Collective, had mechs, but the Freestar Collective really mastered them. The United Colonies had mechs too, but they also relied on the controlled alien beast from their Xeno Warfare division. Both of those were outlawed with the armistice that ended the Colony War. I'm not saying there's an old mech battleground in the game, I'm typing it. Alright, I'm gonna be honest, I kinda hate the answer to this mech question because it still doesn't answer the main question I had with mechs, and that is whether or not we can actually control it. Some of you already hate me because of my opinion of this, but I still believe that we will not be able to control mechs in this game, though I think we'll be able to stumble across them. Again, y'all might fight me on this, you probably will, but that's okay, that's my opinion, and that's gonna be the truth. But that is every question and answer that was in the developer Q&A. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm sure some of you disagree with some of the opinions I shared, but let me know what you guys think. I'm always curious to see your perspective. But as always, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I'm going to be coming out with a lot of new Starfield content, especially with me getting a copy of Starfield coming any day now. I'd like to know what content you guys would like to see. That way I can prioritize the videos that you are wanting. So stay subscribed, comment down below what you'd like to see in the videos once the game does come out. And until next time, stay worthy.